This is the horrific tale of years of torment that tragically led up to the chilling murder of a mother and her partner at the hands of her own son, found in the alleyway by their house, covered in blood, laughing. Hey Coffee and Crimers, I'm your host, Belle Fagan. Today's case does contain some gruesome details, so listener discretion is advised. It was 11 p.m. on a balmy summer's night in Essex when an eerie anonymous 999 call came through saying that there had been a murder at an address in Stansted Mountfitchet. Officers were dispatched and there they found a man dripping in blood, laughing. Asking where the blood on him had come from, he gestured to go inside the house. It was July 22nd, 2015, that they found the lifeless body of Gillian Phillips, aged 54. She was slumped on the sofa and covered in her own congealed blood. She had been stabbed more than 40 times, and her face repeatedly stamped on. Blood splatters covered the wall, soaked the carpets as well as the kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom floors. On the floor lay her partner, David Oakes, who was 60. Now he was still alive, but rapidly dying from 56 wounds to his head, face, and neck. He hadn't long finished treatment for cancer. The murderer was Gillian's 23-year-old son, Brett Rogers. Gillian was pronounced dead on arrival while paramedics desperately tried to resuscitate David. Brett was immediately arrested and the start of a horrifying double murder investigation began. For years, Brett had been a troubled young man. Between 2010 and 2012, police had been called out to Gillian's house 14 times because of Brett. 3 of those times in the space of 8 days. There were reports that Brett was abusing Gillian on a regular occurrence. On the second call to the police, Gillian said that he'd broken into the house and threatened to rape her, all in response to her kicking him out. Gillian felt that no one was helping her and that Brett would have to harm her before any agencies intervened. Honestly, that just makes me feel sick, as I hear that in so many cases that I research, and it's nearly always too late, as well as always being true. The third call, he'd escalated even more. He tried to break into his mum's home again, screaming, "I'm going to," expletive, "kill you." He was a long-time drug user, having started at the age of 11, along with psychotic behaviours, and he'd already had 2 convictions for smashing up his parents' house. Both his parents were separated from each other, so he had hopped between houses to live with them. He'd threatened to rape and kill Gillian numerous times and had been sectioned under the Mental Health Act, where it took 6 police officers to restrain him. He did plead guilty to the criminal damage, but shockingly, the Crown Prosecution Service said that he should not be charged with the threats to kill his mum. Another place where we need to say, what? It literally boggles my mind every single time. The effects really took a toll on Gillian over the years. Her medical records showed that she was stressed, anxious, and generally not able to work, and really it's not surprising. It was also recorded that she'd developed a drinking problem on top of her depression. Just 3 months before he murdered his mother and her partner, he'd actually been in prison. He'd been arrested on August 13th, 2012, for assaulting his father, who he was living with at the time, for breaking his dad's cheekbone and his eye socket. He was convicted of causing GBH, grievous bodily harm, and sentenced to 5 years in prison. During that time, he was held in 6 different prisons and moved 11 times. But, due to the joke that is the prison system in this country, he only served half of that 5 years, and instead was out on probation when he committed this heinous crime. Gillian had told her friends that she felt she had no choice but to have him live with her when he was released from jail, even though she didn't feel safe. And I can honestly imagine the inner turmoil she had. Your kids are your kids, no matter what. But she was well aware that he was dangerous. Too late, as always, a domestic homicide review was released looking at the run-up to the murders, and 13 recommendations were made to various agencies on how and where extra support to Brett's family could have been given. It said that because the treatment had been exclusively focused on Brett's mental health, it led to missed opportunities to respond to the domestic abuse that he was responsible for. Brett's dad said he didn't understand why authorities didn't find him somewhere other than at Gillian's to live. But back to that fateful night. It was Brett himself who made the 999 call that night to tell the police that there had been a murder. The court case began on May 2016 and was absolutely chaotic from the start. On the third day of the trial, Brett flew into a rage, attacking 2 of the dock officers. Then, when he heard the forensic scientist give evidence, he stood up and shouted, "Will you just shut up? You're doing my head in." He then tried to get through the door behind him in the glass-fronted dock in an attempt to escape. Obviously, he found it locked, so instead he turned and launched himself at 2 officers, knocking one to the ground and hitting the other, a woman, straight in the face. Family members, including his dad, pleaded with him to stop before the court clerk hit the panic button. During the trial, it was revealed that a handwritten note with the words "I love you so much" was found at the scene of the murder. The note had actually been torn into 200 tiny shreds, but had the words "I, love, and you" scrawled across them more than 30 times each. The shredded note had been discovered by police in the outside bin next to the property. The defence asked the jury to consider that it may have been some type of apology from Brett. However, the jury instead found him guilty and he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of at least 32 years, with the judge saying that it was a brutal and sustained attack, and that one image that would stay in the mind of everyone involved in the case was the reconstruction of Brett's mother's face showing the stamp injury attributed to Brett's shoe on her left cheek. He said to Brett, "You are a man who attacked the people who loved you the most. Look at what you have done to them. By your actions, you have ruined your family's life and you have ruined your life." But this isn't where the story ends. Just over a year on from his murder conviction, at the age of 25, Brett himself was murdered by 2 fellow prisoners. Prison officers found his body in his cell in June 2017, having been strangled by those 2 inmates. Billy White and Gary Lindley said that they had been ordered by God to kill Brett. Gary, aged 42, had been in prison for a violent attempted burglary where he slashed the face of an 82-year-old. Billy, aged 24, had been serving a life sentence for the murder of his partner in 2015. The 2 said that they'd started planning Brett's murder after being ordered by God. They said they believed his death would exorcise a demon from him and cleanse him of his crimes. The court heard how staff at the prison had been handed a note saying that the killers had decided to free their victim from darkness. Gary and Billy said that they had tried to snap Brett's neck and then suffocated him with a pillow because he didn't appear to be dead. Gary was ordered to serve a life sentence with a minimum of 17.5 years, and Billy was given a whole life term due to this being his second offence of murder. What an absolute, utter mess of a case. Exactly like we discussed in episode 4, the murder of Katie Locke. Due to the lack of support or communication within the mental health organisations in this country, could the murder of Katie and now of Gillian and David been avoided? We'll never know, but to me, it does seem likely. Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying being here, please leave a review on whatever platform you get your podcasts and click on the link in today's case description to join the Cup of Coffee and Crime Facebook discussion group. Until next week, stay safe.